I'm not sure if you saw this terrible story of this 5-year-old boy. His name was Cannon, and he was playing outside on his bike with his 2 young sisters, and a man, his next door neighbor, decided to come outside to shove a gun in the face of this little boy, to shoot him at point blank range and to execute him right there. And we only heard about it because there were small little local outlets that were reporting on it. And we don't hear about these stories in the national news. And of course, so I guess I didn't bring up this part, but the man who executed this little boy was black and the little boy was white. And it might not have been racially motivated. I'm going to give the same benefit of the doubt that I would give to anyone. I don't know that it was racially motivated. I don't know what this person's heart was. The reason why it matters is because an image bearer, a person made in the image of God, was murdered, and God hates murder. That is wrong. So I have no idea if it was racially motivated. What I do know is if the races were reversed, this would be talked about for months on end in the media. And unfortunately, that is what is causing so much of this chaos and so many of the false narratives, that we are only told about instances in which the perpetrator is white and the victim is black, and it makes us think that that happens every day, that that's happening all the time, and that's just not true. It's not statistically true. It's not statistically true that black people are disproportionately affected by police brutality. It is not. If you look at the number of police interactions between white and black people rather than just population size, if you look at the number of crimes committed between white and black people, not just their population size, and you weigh that against the number of conclusions of police interactions that are police brutality, you will see that there is not a disproportionate effect on the black community of police killings. It's just not true. For every unfortunate and tragic instance of a white police officer killing a black person, whether they were armed or not, there is one or more instance of a white person that is killed in the same way, and you don't hear about it. You don't hear about it ever. It's just not interesting to most of the media. There's a really good article by Coleman Hughes in City Journal. Coleman Hughes is a liberal. He is a Biden supporter, and he talks about how his mind changed on Black Lives Matter. His mind changed on police brutality because the data just doesn't prove the narrative, and stories don't prove the narrative. And he actually goes through a lot of the major stories. He looks at the facts, and he points out that there is an alternative story to every story that we hear of a white police officer killing a black police officer. And it's all bad. Like, we shouldn't just dismiss that because it's happening to both white and black people. We should look at every single instance and to make sure that it was justified, that there was no injustice there. I think we're all for accountability. We are all for better and more training and more funding for police departments so that they can do a better and more efficient job, so that they can de-escalate as best as possible. But to create a racialized narrative surrounding that is causing so much chaos and so much division, and it's based on a lie. And so for us as Christians, we have to be willing to push back on it. We have to be willing to say, okay, when I talk about justice, I'm going to have a biblical definition of what justice is. I'm not going to excuse rioting and looting that disproportionately hurts vulnerable people, and very often minority people, just because people tell me that I can't criticize rioting and looting. That's not a biblical definition of what justice is. I'm not going to latch onto organizations and hashtags and movements that stand for things that Christians don't stand for, like dismantling the nuclear family, as Black Lives Matter does. I am not going to justify violence of any kind. I'm not going to justify retribution. I'm not going to justify revenge. And I am not going to latch on to narratives that are simply not grounded in fact. I'm not going to do it. No matter how compassionate it might make me sound, I'm just not going to perpetuate a lie in the name of fitting in. You have to be really careful about the things that you agree to, but the things that you nod your head at the things that you just tacitly accept at your place of work, in your family, with your friends, at your church. You push back against everything that isn't true, using the word of God and using facts, using statistics. That is what we are called to do as believers in objective truth. And I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I'm not saying that you should only listen to me, that you shouldn't listen to other perspectives. I think that we should. We absolutely should. And I am for talking about some kinds of reforms. I am for talking about what can actually help a lot of these communities that I know both sides, a lot of people on both sides really care about. But I'm just not going to buy into false narrative. So the question was, do I think there's going to be a white flight? I think there's going to be a flight of all kinds of people, of all kinds of ethnicities who don't want to feel unsafe in these cities anymore. Again, we are graciously getting a look at what leftist policies end up as. It's chaos. It's anarchy. As Dan Crenshaw says often, leftism doesn't lead. It doesn't actually build something. It's good for activism. It's good for passion. It always sounds good, but it can't actually build something. Its logical conclusion is always just destruction and revolution. That's what it's been throughout history. Conservatism, at least parts of conservatism, always have to be adopted in order for leftism to work at all.